Welcome back, everyone. Hope you had a chance to stretch and refresh yourselves after that engaging set of presentations. To start with, we have a second set that we're very excited to present to you. I think we have representation from State Senator Samara Brooks' office and Monica Martinez and Peter Harkin's office. So a welcome to them, and thank you very much for joining us. We're always glad to have the ears of our legislators, and it's great for you to hear from our youth who will be leading the way towards new ideas on how to keep New York State healthy and make it even healthier. Let me hand it back over to our youth moderators, Senna and Claire, and we'll get started with the second set of presentations.
Thank you so much. We're glad to be back. So next up, we have the Finger Lakes Children's Environmental Health Center collaborated with Rochester Ecology Partners who help all people in Greater Rochester find nature where they live, work, and play through nature-based learning and community-building activities connected to nature. They will be discussing their Environmental Health Ambassadors, EHA, summer program efforts, where they developed and implemented a novel EH learning and mentorship program for urban youth with community-based participatory research.
Let me make it bigger. Okay, sorry. Okay, I'm gonna ask Emily to forward it. So I'm Sandy G. I'm one of the general pediatricians and the director of the Finger Lakes Children's Environmental Health Center. And I want to thank Emily Traw, who helped me put together the slides, and Anne-Marie Kahn, and together we helped run this program with Rochester Ecology Partners. So Kenya Davis, who is the star of the show, she is our high school student. She actually is currently doing an audition at this time. So in order to get her voice, we met last night and we recorded Kenya telling us about the program, but I'll give you the first introductory slide. So Emily, can you share the next slide? Thank you. So CBPR, Community-Based Participatory Research, as you may know, is just really working together with our community partners in the community. And it's something that we've been doing for a really long time. You see here a picture, Anne-Marie is at the public market. This is at our final presentation, which we'll tell you about. But this year we developed a new partnership with Rochester Ecology Partners. It built on our prior connection with Champion Academy, which is not in existence anymore. And was really, this program is getting youth out in nature and having more of an experiential experience to learn about the environment. Okay, next slide. So Rochester Ecology Partners, we wanted to put a plug for them. They really are, it's a nonprofit organization that's run by a former science teacher from the Rochester City School District. And Chris Widmeyer, is very committed to working with schools, getting kids outside in nature, and really at all different ages. And this summer, also with a grant that we had an opportunity to really build a program together focused more on training high school students. So next slide. So it was really exciting because Anne-Marie and I have been doing some trainings with the community-based participatory research mentors who had recommended, like, see what resources are in your community. We found that in the city of Rochester, they have this really awesome program. It's called SOUP, Summer of Opportunity Program, which as a pediatrician, I was not aware of this, but the city can pay kids to have a job where they do 20 hours a week doing different types of internships. So we made our own internship together with Rochester Ecology Partners and wanted to teach kids more formally about environmental health. So some of this was really bringing environmental health case-based education. A big piece of this that was a draw for kids was getting them mentored and having them exposed to some science careers and other people within health. A big part of what we developed for them was very similar to what we do with our summer academy program, and having the youth lead their own directed projects around advocacy and research. And so Kenya will tell you a little bit about that and really get them back into field work. So these were what we did. Typically in a week, Mondays they would go to REP, Rochester Ecology Partners. Tuesday they would come to us and we do a lunch and learn. So we feed them and we expose them to all different kinds of health careers. So not just doctors, but nurses, social workers, caseworkers. We had some PhDs, we had some research people, and we also brought them to different areas of the hospital. We had some adult medicine cardiologists show them different areas of the hospital and things that they do. So it was really an immersive experience for the youth to see what happens in the university on the hospital side. Wednesdays was off campus doing fun stuff, sometimes on a boat, sometimes kayaking, really trying to get kids outside in nature. Thursdays, they would do a choice of whether or not they would want to go to the public market and do some tabling. That's where Kenya did her survey and some of the other students did surveys. Some of our students chose to do gardening work. They worked with some littler kids who were also doing gardening programs. And then Fridays, they could be mentored and also work with our Food Link program. So I think that's the last slide that we have. I'm going to stop sharing, or Emily's going to stop sharing, and then we're going to hear from Kenya. As I said, she's at an audition now, but we met last night, thanks to Emily and Anne Marie, and we recorded Kenya telling you about what she did. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. My name is Kenya. This is the basic structure we use for our research projects. We split into small groups and developed CBPR projects, which means community-based participatory research, aligning with our interests. We then created short surveys to administer to the community members at the Rochester Public Market. Our results analyzed and presented back to the community at the public market. I will now go into further detail with this as it pertains to my project. I chose gun violence for my research project because I feel as though it's a big issue in not only the Rochester community, but also when it comes to people of color. I wanted to administer these surveys so I can see how it affects neighborhoods and races differently. In a team of 3, we created surveys. We distributed them at the public market throughout 3 days. The surveys were anonymous, but some people still did not want to discuss their experience. This is our analysis of our research project on gun violence. We found out that 86% of respondents out of the 37 people we asked reported gun violence as a major issue in Rochester, with 70% having lost someone due to gun violence. We also found out that almost 70% of respondents reported knowing someone who owns a gun. We then asked people on a scale of 1 to 4 if they feel safe in their neighborhood, 1 being the most safe and 4 being the least safe. We found out that participants who self-identified as Black and or African American reported the highest levels of feeling unsafe in their neighborhood. We then presented our results on a poster back to the community at the public market in August of 2025. I am hoping to work in the medical field in the future. I think environmental health contributes to my perspective of others and my ability to help others and my community. Environmental health is important for teens and adolescents to learn about because it's significant to understand your surroundings, environment, and where you live. It's important for kids to know how they can get up and get involved in the community. It can help us understand other people's views. Doing surveying helped us to see perspectives rather than just looking at our own. Thank you for your time.
All right, I think Kenya did a really great job in her presentation. I know it's sometimes hard to just talk to a camera. It can be a little bit nerve-wracking and uncanny, and I think she did a really good job in articulating her points. And I also think that she really brings to light how important it is to educate your youth audiences and kind of just understanding your community, especially with gun violence. It's a really important topic just because it affects everyone in the community as a whole. And the climate of not just your physical, but also mental health. And it's a really important, I guess, just mission to bring to light. And we really want everyone to feel safe and healthy. And that comes from not only the environment, but also just, I guess, gun violence and your safety in general. I think it's a really important point that she brought to light.
Yeah, and echoing off of Claire, it's, such a relevant topic right now, both socially and politically, and I'm glad we aren't being afraid to, shine a light on that and, advocate for, safety of all people. Yeah, and I think that the program that she worked with, it's, summer research programs I always think are such a great way to expose younger students to these new topics, anything from environmental health to, just advocacy and policy and research. I think, having these resources for students is really great. If there are any questions, comments.
I also really like how the Rochester Center, I think you guys did a really good job in like engaging with your local communities and stuff like that when it came to like gardens and things like that. I think that just being so local with your engagement makes your mission feel even more meaningful, and I really love that.
Yeah, not only benefiting the students, but also then benefiting their own community. Yeah. Karen Miller said, talk about what's going on now, gun violence. Talk about what's going on now. Gun violence, bringing it to light is very important. Yes, definitely. It's becoming a more and more relevant topic, especially in schools and, community areas. It's unfortunate that these are such relevant areas where, such tragic events happen.
It's
So
definitely a very pressing issue.
yeah.
And I think that as someone coming from a youth perspective, when it comes to things like environmental health, physical health, mental health, I think that gun violence is a humongous conversation that needs to be had amongst this because it's so relevant, like even in schools and just the environment that you live in, you want to feel safe, happy, and healthy, whether it's with the people or safety regulations, health regulations, and I really do love that Kenya chose that as her topic.
Yeah, and definitely again, she highlighted the redlining and the how it marginalizes people and its effect on people of color, and I think that's also really important to speak upon and not ignore that fact as well.
I think when we've talked about young people in our community, and Emily and Anne-Marie have worked with them, we ask them about the environment, like water and air, but they often will come back to the gun violence in the community because the communities they live in are not safe. So it has been really important for us to get their perspective. And interestingly, when we looked at the data, Kenya was able to get really meaningful data from people who felt comfortable sharing their perspective because it was anonymous. We ask everyone in our office about if anybody has a gun in the home or if they need a firearm lock because we're now giving them out in our office. And I would say 80–90% of the time people say no because they know that they're not comfortable telling me because I'm their doctor. Even they won't tell our social worker, but they will tell Kenya, which is really great because they're reporting anonymously. They can be very honest with her. So I think we learned a lot that we wouldn't have gotten just from grown-ups asking these types of questions, which I think is really important.
Yeah, it's important to get that unbiased and straight data so that, we can all work together to help improve that issue, for sure.
Yeah, I was astonished. It's a big issue where we're from, and in her data to see that I think it was 70% or almost 70% of people reported knowing someone who died from gun violence, which just seemed crazy to me. So yeah, the lack of safety is a huge issue in environmental justice.
Yeah, and that is a horrendous percent, unfortunately.
I think that it's really important that we remember that our environment is just not like plants. I feel like that's just such a general trend that people seem to think, and it just goes so much more beyond that. It's everything you interact with. And I think that gun violence is such a humongous conversation that needs to be had. And I love that Kenya's project was able to kind of give a voice to those who weren't comfortable to speak. And I think that that's a humongous mission and accomplishment that's a part of advocacy in general. And I think that she was really able to accomplish that with the data that she showed us today.
Yeah, I hope you can relay that we all loved her presentation back to her. That would be great.
Yeah,
Absolutely. We'll tell her.
And if we do not have any other questions or comments, I think we can move on to our next group. We have the Hudson Valley CEHC, and it's one of NICE-Check's 7 children's environmental health centers, and it covers the Hudson Valley region. We've also been working with the YPI Regeneron Science Research Institution, a program for students across the Yonkers public high schools who are conducting authentic science research. They will be discussing the risks of lead exposure among youth and YPI student work, and predicting air quality for climate justice and measuring climate anxiety across age groups. And you guys can take it away.
Thank you so much, Claire. We're really excited to be here and present some of the work that's being done in the Hudson Valley. I am just so inspired by all the presentations and love hearing about all the work being done across New York State. I think what we'll do is we will start with our YPI students. And so I see that Kai, I think that you're here. Well, I see you here. But if you don't mind turning on your screen, we could get started with you, if that's okay.
Yes. Hello.
Great. Hi, Kai. Welcome. So similar to the other sessions, I'm gonna let our students, both Senna and Claire, ask some questions after you make a presentation. But I think the first thing we'd love to do is if you'd like to also just even introduce YPI, your experience, talk a little bit about your research, and then again, we'll turn it over to Senna and Claire, who will ask some questions. But again, thanks for joining us today, and we're just excited to hear about you, your organization, and the work you're doing.
Yeah, so YPI is a college health program where there's a lot of different majors that you have. You can do entrepreneurship, journalism, and the main one with research is science research, and that's the one that I'm in. That's the one that the main research stuff is being done for. So, and it's actually, when I started, science research was 3 years, so it started in sophomore year, but it actually has expanded to also doing freshman year. So it's now a 4-year program where in freshman and sophomore year, you go to Somers for competition. And then for junior and senior year, you can go to STS or WESF. So you're really doing these very important competitions. One of our students actually went to ISA, right, the international version, and actually, I believe they did win something. So we're all very proud of them. So I guess I should talk about my research, right? So my research is the relationship between age and climate anxiety. So climate anxiety is when you are afraid of climate change. So like you're anxious about it. That's kind of like how exactly it is stated. So let's see. Climate change is becoming increasingly prevalent in our everyday lives, and projections suggest that rising sea levels could increase the number of flood-prone homes in the UK to 8 million by 2050, up from 6.3 million currently. So this is about a 2 million increase, right? In 2023, the global surface temperatures were 1.45 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. And note that 1.5 degrees Celsius was the threshold set by the Paris Climate Agreement. The Paris Climate Agreement is basically everyone's trying to limit their carbon footprint, right? So I don't think the US is in the climate agreement anymore because of the current administration, but just overall, that's how the world is, right? So 6.9% of America, 69 actually percent of Americans are somewhat worried about climate change, and 29% say that they're very worried about climate change. So a study by Clayton and Carazia created a questionnaire to measure and assign an overall climate change anxiety score. That was the main part of my research, right? The questionnaire to numericize, I guess, the climate anxiety. So researchers actually in Tuvalu tested climate anxiety, and in 87% of cases, the distress caused by climate change was bad enough to limit daily regular functioning. So it really got me thinking that if they're being, because Tuvalu is a low-lying island in the Pacific, so they're really being affected by climate change. So it makes sense that they have all this climate anxiety. They're so afraid that it's limiting their daily functioning. So I was like, okay, I want to translate this into something more like in the US. So I was like, okay, so age, right? Because when you're affected by something, you're going to have more anxiety because of it. So I was thinking, oh, the different generations, how would their age affect their climate anxiety? So I'm using the questionnaire created by Clayton and Carazia to 300 participants and via Google Forms. So the groups are divided by each generation. So the baby boomers, Generation X, millennials, and Generation Z are the 4 groups. And my hypothesis is that baby boomers will have the least amount of climate anxiety, and Generation Z will have the most amount of climate anxiety, because Gen Zers, they're the ones who are actually going to be most affected by climate change going 40, 50, 60 years in the future. And it's backed up by like the Yale program on climate change communication, the George Mason Center of Climate Change Communication. And the reason why I'm doing this research is because climate anxiety represents a psychological burden that has the potential to influence behavior, mental health, and even social and political actions. Like, for example, as younger people become more concerned and anxious, they may be more likely to advocate for sustainable policies. So, and for future research, I hope that I can probably do cross-cultural studies to explore whether climate anxiety differs across countries and regions, because all this is like in the Yonkers tri-state area. So yeah, that's really my research.
Amazing. So Kai, thank you so much. Thank you also for just providing that overview about the amazing work being done by YPI. I put in the chat, YPI is Yonkers Partners in Education, really preparing and going from educational level, starting with the high school level and in the district to really provide this mentorship. I just wanted to add one small thing before I turn it over to Claire and Senna, that interestingly, as a pediatric pulmonologist, I have done similar research looking at whether the climate change anxiety is worse in caregivers of children who have underlying respiratory disease versus those who may not be caring for a child. But this is real, and there's a body of literature that is mounting on climate anxiety and understanding how do we support you know, those around us and communities through the worry of climate anxiety by both getting at the root cause of climate change, but then really having sustainable practices in the community to support them is important. So it's science and asking the questions like what you're doing that really is going to move us forward, you know, in the times that we're going through. So just really incredible work. I love hearing about what you're doing. Before we turn it over to one of your student colleagues, I just wanted Senna and Claire, if you had any questions to ask or anything for Kai? Wanted to give you an opportunity.
I think you did a really great job in your research, and I really like your topic, Kaya. I think that people tend to not act upon issues when it doesn't directly affect them. And I think that that trend is so not okay. I think that climate change, even though some people might face it more severely, it's a problem for everyone, and everyone really does need to do something about it. And I love that your research really shows how everyone needs to care and everyone needs to do something about it. And we are all affected by it. And it's not okay to not care because it doesn't directly affect you.
Yeah, I think your presentation was just amazing, and I'm really glad that you're focusing in on this topic. I know that we have a couple presenters within this one group itself, so I think we're gonna go over to Helena and then next to Catherine to just cover this and do this amazing presentation, and then I think we're gonna go into a couple more specific questions and some open discussion.
Yeah, I think we're gonna pass it over to Helena now.
Okay, hello everyone. So my name is Elena, and I'll tell you a bit about my project. I called it Predicting Air Quality for Climate Justice. So, mostly I'll be focusing on looking at the urban heat island effect and its impact in Yonkers. I looked at two variables, particulate pollution, specifically particulate matter 2.5, because of its smaller size, it's more directly worsening respiratory conditions like asthma. And then elevated temperatures, like during the summer, that can worsen air quality. So that's the relationship between those. Studies, like in other major cities, also found that like marginalized communities may experience more intense heat. I know one study looked at Atlanta, and they saw that the higher percentage of the non-Hispanic Black population, they were more concentrated in areas that also had a higher intensity of these urban heat islands. So the problem is that vulnerable populations are disproportionately affected by climate change, and the purpose of my project is to sort of create a more resilient community and a space where people can actually be more comfortable living their day-to-day lives, especially during the summer. So for my methods, I had it organized into sort of three different sections. The first one being creating predictive models, the second one being creating simulations, and the third one being creating an app. So with the predictive model, I gathered data from the EPA and NOAA, and I had it mapped out on, well, I had it like coded like with Python, which took a really long time. But with the temperature list, I had it organized alongside the air quality data. So it'd be like an X and a Y, which would set it up for the linear regression aspect of it. And what this did was, that's sort of what the predicting part of it was. It would map out all these data points into sort of one graph, and then see the relationship between the two variables. And then within the predictive model, I had it sort of coded so it's a little easier to understand. The output would be like predicted air quality when temperature is blank will be blank. Okay, and then for the simulations, I want to simulate the effects of different kinds of interventions. So the major one I was looking at was a 40% tree canopy. I know that in New York City, a 40% tree canopy had turned out to reduce temperatures by up to like about 10 degrees. And I feel like because New York City is pretty much Yonkers' neighbor, it's like right there, I think it would have similar effects here in Yonkers as well. And then for my results, I made two predictive models, the first one being just over the summer and the second one being across 14 years. There was a positive correlation between temperature. As temperature increased, the air quality had also increased, so it worsened. And then across the 14 years, there was actually a slight negative line of best fit. But I think also because with the 14 years one, that one was used with information from White Plains because Yonkers historical data isn't publicly accessible. But with that, I have been communicating with like universities who I think do collect this kind of data. And I do have an organization who is willing to share that data, but sort of like locked under a contract right now. But then for the 40% 40% tree canopy, that would also have similar results of reducing temperatures like about up to 8 degrees. And then for the app, I want to make all this data accessible because I know that the average Yonkers resident probably isn't looking at gathering all this data and making predictive models. I feel like this data should be more accessible to the average Yonkers resident. And I think with an app that would be helpful to maybe those with, I could have like different sort of functions that would be helpful to people maybe with asthma, like a symptom tracker. It would show sort of like a map that would show cooling spaces or reminders to avoid outdoor activities, things like that. And I think the model would be sort of replicable to other areas that may also be facing this same issue, and it could be applied to like other vulnerable areas. And then for limitations, I think the data gaps are a huge thing. With the EPA, there was some like holes or missing dates. And what I did with that is interpolate that data. So I got the average from the day before, the average from the day after, then averaged those averages out, and then sort of filled out that missing gap. In the future, for future research, I plan on measuring CO2 emissions rather than PM2.5 to see maybe a little bit of a less localized scale, and then also including a little more direct community engagement. I have worked with one of the major environmental organizations here, and I was able to sort of gather input from people that live directly in these vulnerable areas, which I think did help with the app, but I would have loved to have more input with the other aspects of my project. And I think the findings would like sort of guide policy decisions, like actually allowing more trees to be planted because we would have like actual real data to show to them. And then it would also enhance like community health and resilience. And yeah, I think that's my whole project.
Thank you so much, Elena. That was amazing. Wait, I want to make sure that I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Is it Elena?
Yeah, Elena, the H is silent.
Elena. Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, your project was amazing. It was a really interesting topic that I really honestly didn't know too much about before. Thank you for sharing. Okay, I believe we have one more within this group. Catherine, we would love to hear your presentation. Then we'll do questions.
Okay. Hi, my name is Catherine. And for my project, I'm looking at the geospatial characteristics of children with elevated lead risk who also are food insecure and their concerns with lead exposure. And so basically for the study, what I'm looking at is children in Westchester and throughout Westchester who are of like a low socioeconomic status, who have screened positive at like medical checkups for being food insecure, if they have an elevated risk of lead exposure or lead exposure in general. And the way I'm doing this is through my mentor's databases and their screenings when checkups and their lead levels when tested. If pediatricians recommended that they did test, we have those levels as well. And I think it's a really interesting project that I didn't really know much about before I started researching it and yeah, exploring the different types of food insecurity and its correlations with lead exposure. And while I have the data, I haven't done my analysis portion yet. But I know we also have data on like the relationships with chronic illness and their relationships between food insecurity, chronic illness, and lead exposure. So that's also something like really interested that I'm looking into analyzing. And yeah, I think it's just a really interesting topic that I really, really enjoy looking at and understanding further. And it's really important, I think, throughout Westchester because there are a lot of disadvantaged areas within Westchester and a lot of people that are food insecure, probably more than we'd expect. So I think understanding and being able to map specifically through the geospatial mapping where these areas of lead exposure and food insecurity are occurring, I think that would be like to take further steps. It would be a really great opportunity to know exactly where these areas are and to have charities or work with like Feeding Westchester in order to prevent at least the food insecurity and to minimize the risks of lead exposure. And yeah, that's just something I'm looking into further, but that's what I've gotten to so far.
Awesome. No, yeah, that sounds like a great project idea and project outline that you have, and I can't wait to see all the data you gather and everything. It's definitely a really relevant topic that we have right now within a lot of the environmental justice issues that we have, and it's great that you're touching on that.
Yeah, I think that, sorry, did I cut you off, Senna?
No. Go ahead, Claire.
Okay. I think that food insecurity kind of really relates to the overall issue of redlining and what you're exposed to in general. I love that your project kind of has like a niche in that aspect with like lead and food insecurity. Like, I think that when it comes to finding, I guess, budget-friendly options for food, and it's kind of easy to find food that is going to be containing chemicals more likely. And I think that having a budget-friendly and healthy option for food is a really important point that needs to be brought to our community. And even when it comes to redlining in general, like being exposed to lead can be seen not just in what you're consuming, but also where you're living, like even housing. I know poor housing structures with lead in them still a really big issue. And seeing these like socioeconomic factors that really take a big toll on your health is an important trend that we notice. So yeah, great job.
Yeah. Now I believe we have some time to circle back and do some questions for all of our great presenters that we just had. So, Claire, do you want to start with some questions for Kai? Wait, Claire,
Sorry, I
you
didn't realize that was muted.
okay.
I think that all three of you, Senna and I are also research kids. Like I think that science research community is awesome. And I went to LISEF and all of that stuff. And I think that it truly does teach you to kind of one kind of alter your presentation to the audience that you're having and kind of really find a voice and be confident in public speaking, which is such an important value for people. And especially in our generation, when it comes to the responsibility we have for lobbying for better advocacy for our environment, I think that it's so important that people like us are able to take the reins and really just vocalize our issues and our messages to people. And it's a great skill, and I'm really glad to see that a lot of people are doing environmental focuses when it comes to science research. I love it. Sana, I'll pass it over to you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just echoing off of Claire, we're both again in research, and it's awesome to see that you guys are in it too. It's great that we have that connection. And Kai, I just wanted to make a comment about, spreading information is like so important right now with the current, federal and administration status, and making sure that you're still communicating these issues and bringing light to that is really important. I just wanted to commend you on that for being able to stand up and speak about that. It's really great. Yeah, do you have any ideas of how you want to keep moving forward with what you're doing? Or maybe even spreading that further, maybe digitally or in any idea that you have?
I did not know how I'm going to export like my results, but the thing is, what I do know is that at school I should continuing to show my commitment to the environment and to wanting to make it better for the future. That's something I want to continue doing.
Yeah, definitely. And it's great that you're doing that. You're inspiring others to take that path as well. Yeah.
One thing that I think is so great about social media, especially nowadays and ever since the pandemic, I think that it's really become a community that has become more open about mental health and internal issues and kind of just self-advocacy. And I think that climate anxiety and like kind of extracting the data that you've gotten from that is like kind of the perfect content that's like short but also impactful and meaningful. That would be like really great for like large audiences like that. So like maybe even expanding your data through that method would perhaps work very well. I don't know, just a suggestion.
Hi, Sandra G commented, I think highlighting eco-anxiety in all ages is important, and advocacy efforts could focus on voting and encouraging those who are able to vote to elect lawmakers who are aligned with EJ and climate issues. Definitely. And I think that, I also agree with you, Sandra, that, making sure that we're all putting representatives in place who align with our values and really just want the best for both our future and the planet's future. So definitely. Now, Elena, I just wanted to commend you on making plots in Python. I've been there. I know how hard it is. I know how tedious it is. I've been there the hours to try and get those codes to work and trying to get those plots to work. That's amazing that you did that and have that graphics to represent and, articulate your information is really great. And I commend you on that.
Dr. Evans in the chat said, building on this idea, I think that many of the environmental exposures discussed today are related to climate change and collectively provide support for advocating for climate and mitigation strategies. And I think everyone actually has done a really great job about that. And I've loved all of the topics that we've brought up today. I think they've all really complemented each other like very, very well.
Yeah, and they emphasize the importance of, making sure that we do something about climate change.
And also another thing that I've seen is especially with the research projects and all the presentations today, having data that's accessible and open for everyone to access is such an important I guess mission that we should have too. Because trying to get these findings and find these trends and solve all of these problems requires large amounts of data and is going to be applied to, I think, mostly large groups of people. And so I think that that's an issue that needs to be fixed. I think that this data should be very much more publicly available. Factual data too, yes.
Yeah, and being able to have multiple people work on it, like we work better in numbers, we work together stronger. So, being able to work together to solve these issues and collaborating is really great. A question for Elena I had was Elena, was that I was wondering how you got into your topic. I think it was very, very unique, very niche, and I had never really heard of it before. I was wondering how you were inspired into that.
Well, I was mostly thinking about the difference in how much my family goes out, like during the summers when I was little to now. Like I remember when I was little, we would go out and like play like the most random sports out in the park pretty much every single day. And then as time went on, it was sort of like something that kept like it was being said was like that it was too hot to go outside or like it's too hot to play volleyball right now. Um And even more recently, I remember playing volleyball with my sister outside, and it was like 95 degrees. And when we came back inside, it was like we both had headaches, and her eyes even turned sort of like red. And I just want to see like why is that? Because the parks that are more far away are more comfortable to go to. And I was trying to like think these kind of connections. Like why is it that in Yonkers here we can't simply go outside and just play in the park? I got more into like the data side of that.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm glad you have that personal touch to it too. Let's see.
In the
Claire, do you have
chat,
any questions?
honestly, no. But Dr. G in the chat said, Kai, I think highlighting eco-anxiety in all ages is important. Advocacy efforts should focus on voting and encouraging those who are able to vote to elect lawmakers who are aligned with environmental justice and climate issues. And that's a humongous point I really agree on. I think that one thing I learned from NICE Check summer program was the upstream problem solving thing. And I think that the furthest way up the stream is who is electing the laws and who is able to control all of the standards for our state. And I think that in all ages, kind of encouraging these problems to be solved on a big level is a great goal that we should all have. And voting and using your voice too, definitely as well.
I do have a question for Catherine as well. Do you think that you have any ideas of how you're gonna spread that information later, or how you're gonna like progress into, sharing that data and information?
Yeah, I was thinking about partnering with like Feeding Westchester or partnering with like BCHP in general, or like Murray Frere Children's Hospital, about spreading the word in like pediatricians' offices and stuff about the risks of the correlation between food insecurity and lead exposure. And then on the other note of actually like helping those who are food insecure throughout Westchester, as I kind of said before, I know Feeding Westchester and partnering with food pantries throughout our community would be a great way to help and spread the information that I gather.
Yeah, and I think that's a great idea. Really, again, like coupling together, giving back to the community, and making sure that we get that information out there for sure.
Well, then, on that note, I think we're at kind of a conclusion to our presentation today. We just want to thank you all for sharing your projects and engaging with everyone today. And we never really learn about what we're doing out in our communities until we have these really important conversations. So I'm glad that we were able to facilitate all of these ideas and topics and conversations today. I'm just really glad that I love seeing everyone in my generation and I guess kind of connect over the passion for sharing our voices and kind of using it to contribute to a greater good, and the biggest greater good, our environment. I think it's such an important cause, and seeing all these different communities and organizations learn so much and do so much to, I guess, find out what's wrong and really be able to build solutions and do something about it and put actions to their ideas is such a beautiful thing that everyone here has done today. And even just coming to this call in general and having the ability and the curiosity to do something with what you've learned. And I think it's an amazing thing. And I'm very glad that we all were able to do this today. Our environment is everything around us. And it's so, so, so important that people continue to work together and continue to educate themselves and spread awareness and use their voice for such a humongous cause that is pressing, even if it's not directly related to you, whether you live in a rural place, an urban place, it really does affect everyone. And if we work together and we continue to work in groups and we continue to work together, I think that is how true change happens. And I'm so, so happy that we were able to hear from everyone who joined this call today.
Yeah, and just emphasizing again, I feel like I've learned so much today. I learned about so many new things, everything from photo voice to canopies and their effects. And, I really got some new perspective and I was able to think about things in a way that I haven't really before. And I really appreciate all the insight and information that everyone worked so hard to bring to us today. So thank you to everyone for all of that amazing conversation that we had. A lot of big congratulations in the chat, a lot of commendments to everyone. Yeah, everyone did an amazing job, definitely.
Yeah, great job, everyone. And I'm excited to where your journeys will lead in the future.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how everyone's projects continue to develop and grow and see the impact that you guys all make. Thank you so much.
Senna
think-
and Claire, thank you for moderating. Thanks to our presenters. Thanks to our attendees. Thanks to the mentors that empowered these youth to speak and do this great work. We hope to see you all again next year with more good news. Have a good evening.
Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much,
much, everyone. Have a
everyone.
great evening.